Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alicia Brasher here at Cosmic Gateway, and super excited. I have a very special guest joining me today. I have Maree Batchelor, who worked in the medical profession for over 20 years and made her transition into a multidimensional healer. Energetic counseling, I like that terminology. You're a mother and have probably one of the most incredible stories, information background transition. You're here to wake up humanity. So, Maree, thank you so much for being here. Very, very much looking forward to this conversation and what's going to come through. I have no idea at this point, but welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a privilege to be able to speak with you and share my information. And I know you and I share a passion of really wanting to help humanity and, get this awakening really to take place for the majority of people so that we can clean up this planet and live better lives. So, it's a pleasure to be here collaborating with you, and particularly because you're another person from Melbourne, and it's so nice to meet somebody who's going through similar sort of experiences. So fantastic.
Totally. Yeah. And that's a really important point that I've had so much feedback recently, and thank you to everyone for watching, but they love seeing the Aussies, and and so it's so cool to have to collaborate and have you on the show, knowing that probably I'll get to meet you in person at some point,
Yes.
just down the not that far down the road. So
no, fantastic.
So, Maree, I'm aware of your personal story, a bit of backstory actually. I came across your work a number of years ago, and I just love how the synchronicities sort of bring in that alignment. So it was actually one of the viewers on YouTube that recommended that I get in contact and interview you. So I had to then go and look you up, and then the penny dropped, and I was like, no, I'm familiar with your work and your story because you were a guest at the Paradigm Shift Summit in, I think, the year before I was there.
Right, yes.
And I told you the story, but just for people's, context sake, before I was presenting on there, I was a little bit nervous and not really sure how to go about it. And I found your video and I listened to your story, and I was just in awe and amazed. And you put me at ease knowing, no, it's okay. I can just get up and share my story too. So for that, I want to publicly thank you.
Oh, great.
And then just the little synchronicities, how we've connected. And then I've had the privilege of talking with people who are your clients and have had some profound, beyond profound experiences through the work that you do. So before we get into it, just a thank you for the work that you do for people and humanity.
Well, likewise, and thanks to you. And we're all doing what we need to do after we've had these extraordinary awakenings. Or in your case, you've been on that journey ever since you came to the planet, this incarnation. For me, it's been later in life, extreme transition. And once that's been activated, that passion, it just drives you. There is no choice. A lot of people say, oh wow, you're so brave, and I say, it's not about being brave. This is it. It's done. It's activated. It's done. And it does give me a sense of the future self is already through this, and through retro causality, sending back the breadcrumbs, helping us navigate. And we
just gave me chills as you said that.
Yeah, and we're having these divine experiences that no matter how challenging it's been, and you and I have had plenty of challenges on this journey, and as I've discussed with you, I think if you're being effectual in your work and helping people to a significant degree, we're annoying the dark, we're pissing them off, and so they are throwing lots of stuff at us, and they will be doing that to many, many people on their journeys, because we're a threat to this enslavement that we've been in for lifetimes, and we're a threat to that. So we're having a lot of these challenges, but there is something that keeps coming through. And that's what's magical, that you get back up and there's the peace, love, joy, and well-being. I mean, I'm experiencing it more than ever now, this light that's coming through, the thinning of the veil, the assistance that is here for us is really phenomenal. And so no matter what we talk about today, I really do want to impress on people, you know, we must slipstream into this light that's coming in, because it's that is going to help us the most, heal us, elevate our frequency, put us in different realities to actually overcome what would otherwise be impossible if we were only sitting in a 3D frequency field. So there is benevolent help, there is a lot of light, and it is our future self, it is us, and we are directly connected to source. And so, you know, the challenges are extraordinary at the moment globally, and, you know, locally, particularly for us here in Melbourne. And, you know, we need to remember not to just get completely disgruntled, dismayed, you know, overwhelmed and exhausted, but get into that slipstream of consciousness that's coming in like never before.
Yeah, and you so beautifully articulated that. And I think that's a beautiful way to sort of paint the canvas before we dive deep into what we're going to talk about. And to, you know, come back to that. And I know as you were talking, I was like, yeah, I've been aware of this for a long time, but it's becoming more and more that you can feel that joy, that lightness, that hope, that, you know, pure connection in. And then things get really wonky. And it's like, yeah, it's like navigating this very narrow corridor.
The word that has come to me of late, which is becoming something that I'm teaching people in my sessions, is soften. Soften your human. Soften your mind. Soften your heart. And soften your physicality. You don't have to hold your mind-body costume in a stance of protection, angst, striving. We've got to drop into this now moment, softening all these aspects of ourselves, and then the light, the warrior, the protector, the guide that you are in truth can get in. And so we've got to understand that our triggers, our reactions, our angsting, our striving, our programmed mind, shoulds and have tos, is not in our favor. We must soften all of that. And then that light comes in and we purify and heal ourselves by activating those codes within us that are there ready for now. These are organic codes ready for activation. And we'll accelerate that process by softening our human earth suit. So, you know, I'm really, you know, just focusing on that, and there is so much assistance that's coming through.
So beautifully said. Even just your words were soothing. Every time you said it, I could feel myself just going.
I know, it became my word this last couple of weeks. It's soften, just soften. And it's cool, because if you can remind yourself of that, whatever you're doing in every interaction, every time you're connecting with another person in a situation, and you can feel that angst, because we're in a heightened state of flight fright at the moment. We've just come out of that lockdown, and it's only now that you can look back and realize the level of the intensity of that, the feeling of the policing that was coming in, you know, looking over your shoulder. I mean, I was going maskless and being totally abused, totally beyond, you know, what you could comprehend in a 3D. This was being orchestrated by the dark to just come in and attack me at such a level for standing up for our health and well-being. And so this level of intensity that we've been living in, you know, we've got to soften and trust that this is unfolding in the way it's meant to. These timelines are opening up and being revealed, and we're seeing much more assistance, as I said, and the light coming in, and this other timeline of this technocracy, this artificial intelligence, these people that are just desperate to get the vaccine, you know, the splits just being revealed. We have to keep ourselves alive and wait for this to, you know, undo, basically, so that we can, you know, get through this mandated vaccine. You know, we're not going to be able to travel potentially for some time. We're not going to be able to, you know, maybe go to certain restaurants, but, you know, hold back, like the Berlin Wall coming down. We are going to get freed.
That just gave me your words are just, it's making all my senses just come alive. And I do agree. It's just navigating through this for however long. So if
pull in that light, and you know, that's where our safety, where our protection, our warrior is, in that light being. And so soften.
That's going to be the word for me. I'm just going to, every time I need to, I'm going to hear your words. So if we can just backtrack just a little bit for those who don't know you and don't know the journey that you've been on, that has made you, well, not made you, but has pushed you from a transitioning from the medical world into what you do now. Would you be able to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's interesting, as you're even mentioning my story from mainstream medical to awakening. It's like I've done the extremes of the realities. The 3D couldn't have been more 3D, as I'm prescribing and vaccinating and, you know, fully following the Rockefeller Medical School protocols that we've all been indoctrinated with as doctors, and really mind controlled in that course. And we are good people, you know, doctors, you know, we've signed up to do medicine, the majority of us, because we actually do want to help humanity. And then to have been awakened to the level that I've awakened to, which is beyond so many other people's understandings, in terms of, you know, we were discussing earlier, you know, where I am, it's not love and light. We're here in a war. And, you know, many people in the awakening movement haven't even registered the level of, you know, war that we're in. And so, interesting to have gone from one extreme to the other. So, yes, just to give the audience an understanding of who I am and how I've come about to do what I do. I worked as a mainstream medical doctor, as you said, for 20 years. I'd trained in pediatrics, obstetrics, and I'd worked in internationally in England and other places. So I'd, you know, really seen a bit and done a lot of what I thought was great work at the time. And I was married to a surgeon, and we had 4 children, and we lived the perfect 3D life and thought that we were doing, you know, the right thing for people, and we were good, kind people. But we did live in a very privileged existence, and so there was no need to wake up. You know, it was all ticking along very well for us. And we went for a walk on a local beach in the middle of winter, and my 4-year-old son was suddenly killed by a car that was driven by an underage driver, and the car was completely out of control. We'd walked up the stairs from the beach, and this car just aimed straight at my son and drove him straight into the fence, despite the fact that he was surrounded by some adults on either side. It was just so unbelievably, like, targeted in a way that cracked me open. Even at the time when I witnessed this, something was saying there's more going on here than this 3D reality. So you could imagine the extraordinary trauma, hysteria, and just you know, the significant impact it had on me at the time. And then his journey unfolded where they airlifted him to the Children's Hospital, and I continued to get downloads and information coming to me in amongst this hideous terror and terrible trauma. And I was getting lights coming to me while I was packing my bag to drive up to the hospital, and I saw a light that came into my third eye, and I thought I was developing a migraine, going, oh my gosh, what is this? Turns out that light was when he was on the table in theatre and had open chest cardiac massage. He died on the table. And that exact moment, the light had hit me when I was packing to drive up. I continued to have other experiences where, I was getting downloads and messages, and he ended up dying after 11 days in the hospital, which was a horrific journey for my whole family. But something was telling me that I needed to investigate more of this reality. So I struggled with my grief, and I still had the 3 children, and I actually went on to have another child. And in that process, I was really just downloading with more and more information. I was guided to meditate extensively each day. I was guided to buy some books. I read Eckhart Tolle from cover to cover multiple times, but on first reading, it was just, I just knew it. I understood it. It activated me. And in fact, that actually led me to deeper investigation, because I loved Eckhart Tolle's work, and I could sit in this peaceful moment and in the now and have these incredible experiences. But then within half an hour, I was back in horrendous grief, trauma, triggered, angsting. And I'd go, well, why can I sit in this at some point, but then I can't maintain it? Why can't people maintain full embodiment of light?
Yeah.
Where's, Eckhart Tolle hasn't mentioned that there's actually stuff set up to purposely take you out of that state, that these parasitic thought forms and mind control programs and technologies and devices are why we can't stay in the present moment. That's by design.
I've never heard anyone say that, but I completely agree with you.
So that made me further investigate, because I'm saying, okay, I get this. I'm actually experiencing this. It's absolutely real. I drove down to the site where my son was killed a couple of weeks after his funeral, and a ball of light came out of the post where he was stuck and hit me and activated every cell in my body. And I was in complete bliss at the sight of my 4-year-old son's accident, beyond understanding that I could be in that state. And I wanted to ring my family and say, it's all okay. Something amazing is happening. Nothing is as it seems. I'm here on the planet to do something extraordinary. But then half an hour later, I'm at home going, no, there's nothing good about this. So the extremes were shown to me. I also got a lot of messages, and I can look back now and say my son was saying things to me like, I love you more than you, mummy. I love you. And he was talking about the big me. He was saying, whatever's going to happen, it's about this big you that needs to get in this body and onto the planet. And unfortunately, the way the world is at the moment, and I've discussed this with you earlier, where I said, look, in an ideal situation, turn on the light, pull back the curtains, we'd all be done in 24 hours. There'd be none of this working through our shadows and our triggers and all of that. It would be pure, light. I've experienced it many times, but the maintaining of it is where we need to become the modern day realized beings. And unfortunately, in the current situation, we need to work through all of our challenges and see them as our training to get us to the next level, to get more light embodiment, more activation, get those codes activated so we can live in peace, love and joy, well-being, self-healing and self-purifying in a state of, connectedness. How can I best help you? Aligning with people in heaven on earth. So that's our potential. And so now here we are seeing what is stopping us from this. So I continued my journey really investigating through looking at archaeology, astronomy, astrology, looking at, science at the highest level, mysticism, and recognizing that this is science. I'm talking science here. But of course, this is something that's been completely withheld from us. And this is information that only a very few were privileged to know. And so I was determined to find out more. I joined a local ashram here and followed the teachings of the guru that had been buried in a temple in India. And I had a desire to go back to this, or to go to this temple in India in a small town in Gynaecology. And after some years of looking at the Hindu philosophies and picking at them and seeing what resonated, I went on a trip to Gynaecology, and that's where I was zapped on the head in the temple when I sat with the guru who was buried there and said, why do you get to be a realized being? What about the rest of us? We're humans. We've got the same mind, body, costume, technology. Why are you living in bliss, peace, love, and joy, ongoing vibrations spreading from his burial site? What is it? And then boom, I get zapped. Light flowing through my body, programs just dropping off and reality opening up. And I was in cosmic consciousness for 18 months, understanding that I was a galactic being, that this was all about our multidimensional self, the infinite of who we are, and that we are, here to discover that in truth, bring it in and really clean up. What I say is reverse engineer what the dark has done to our earth suits to make us enslaved and to make us puppets of their dark agendas. And so I realized that my job then was going to be as a cleaner, to clean off what had been done to humanity. So I came back home from India and found out that the ashram guru had been having sex with 70 of his female disciples. So realized that was actually not the key to enlightenment. Thanked them very much for some of the information that I'd learnt along the way, and was grateful that I'd hooked up with this realized being who was in fact the truth, and that his disciples had been given a power but weren't clean enough. They still ran the sexual programs, not feeling worthy, it's everywhere.
It's
opened
everywhere.
My eyes. So I extracted myself very quickly from...
It's interesting. We haven't spoken about this, but I had a similar, kind of a similar experience when I was in Nepal, Tibet. So we will talk about that later. Keep going.
So, incredibly revealing. And what I would have to say about my journey every step of the way, it teaches me, it trains me, it's revealing. The New Age would say, oh, yes, these are lessons. Well, I don't like to think of them as lessons because, quite frankly, we don't need lessons. As I've said, fill up with pure source light and we're done. But this is a training, and I'm seeing through my own experiences, as we all do on this awakening journey, how this works. It's really looking at the engineering, as I say, of what they've done to us, and then pulling on my medical information and understanding, and recognizing that there was a reason that I've had that training, and have that deep understanding of how controlled and brainwashed we are in that, and how the doctors are in general very good people, but just misguided. And you see that it's through the whole education system. You see that it's through the legal system, and at the highest levels, we've got judges that are really not here for the greatest good. And it's at the top of these different institutions, whether it's the medical one, the pharmaceutical, whether it's the legal system, the education, at the very top are these dark agenda entities embodied in human form. And they're controlling this whole setup here with the help of the off-world energetic reptilian, or when I say off-world, they're here, but they're using our energy source to be here. So, so then my journey led to the fact that my family of origin and my surgeon husband, decided that I'd really lost the plot, which is very common for people who awaken so abruptly, as I'm saying that I'm going to be healing people all over the world, and I've got a mission, and I'm here as a, galactic team member with Bhagwan Nityananda from Ganeshbury, and there's a few other good dudes on my team, you know, I was quickly taken off to the psychiatrist. But because of my medical background, I was very, you know, I knew how to answer the questions. When somebody asks you, do you hear voices and are there messages coming through? I knew immediately how to answer to keep myself out of hospital. But also, again, revealing, because I realized that psychiatry, which is a topic you and I want to discuss, is actually being used. It is a way of actually getting the awakened and medicalizing them, you know, diagnosing them and shutting them down. And I recognize that actually psychiatry doesn't actually exist. Mental illness doesn't exist. Everything that's being put down as mental illness is just the dark using us or preventing us from awakening or giving us a fright in our awakening experiences. So people who are diagnosed as psychotic are having multidimensional experiences of not a very pleasant kind and need to be shifted further into the light and cleaned of their issues because they've often had very dysfunctional lives, because they were big light beings before they reincarnated into this lifetime, and the dark knew that they were going to be very effective. So they've put them in dysfunctional families, they've challenged them horrendously, so they don't have a groundedness but have this activation into a multidimensional realm. And they're, you know, like lambs to the slaughter for the dark, and then picked up by the psychiatry institution and diagnosed. And you and I were even discussing that they're now even using the symptoms of awakening as symptoms of psychosis. Do you see the numbers 111? Do you believe you're seeing 222444 and they have a meaning for you?
Messages in songs.
Messages in songs. Well, of course, this retrocausality that I've been talking about, which is your future self that's already done, feeding back information in this now moment, is giving us these keys to open ourselves further. And the psychiatrists are picking it up and saying that's a symptom of a psychiatric illness. So this awakening is absolutely, you know, thwarted every step of the way. And, you know, what I would like to say for people is, if you feel like you're being challenged, it's because the dark don't want us doing this. But I can assure you that we are going to get through this. Our future self is already done. We are getting assistance. The veil is thinning. People like you and I are connecting. Here we are having these conversations. And so it is happening. And when we understand we're in a virtual reality video game, this is a holographic projection. It is not solid. It's solid and real when we're in it in a 3D sense. Fill up with this light, activate yourself, sit in this higher frequency, and it is a completely different reality. And, you know, for no reason, you're feeling peace, love, and joy. It's not about your external world all being perfect. In fact, that's always a distraction, that I've got to get my ducks lined up in a row and then I'll be happy, or make enough money, or I'll get a bigger house and then I can stop and be happy. No, it's now, despite your external environment. And that's where we've got to keep going into that light and understanding that we're infinite beings, that we don't truly die, that this is just our physical earth suit, and that we're here playing a virtual reality holographic video game where we've been trapped for lifetimes and enslaved, experimented on, manipulated, and traumatized. And then now we have an opportunity to actually get out. The game has just begun. You know, we're really now getting the keys to understand. And, you know, I was mentioning to you the concept of a realized being. And I, of course, had studied a lot of that in India and recognized that these guys detach from everything in their reality, their 3D reality. And I thought, wow, how godly of them, how saintly of them. But they sat in caves detached from everything in their 3D world, their relationships, their physical surrounds, to stop suffering. Because it is through our entanglements in this 3D world, our attachments, our need for things to be a certain way, that we're controlled. They will use, so when we need to control another, control a situation, when we have heightened expectations, when we have heightened desires, desperate neediness and attachment, which is of course done to our earth suits on purpose, so we all feel less than and inadequate unless we have these props. And we've got to let go of these props, become fully embodied, confident in who we are, stop this, which is a design of the dark, these thought forms that take you away from peace, love, and joy, that put you in a state of self-concern and self-doubt. These need to go. They are not yours. We are not naturally designed to be attacking ourselves. And so we've got this ability now to clean up this earth suit and become the modern day realized being, where we don't have to give up our physical surrounds and sit in caves without electricity. We can have the benefits of the positive things of this world and have some comfort and a chair to sit on and you know, have some interactions. But the key here is to detach, have these things without needing them to be in a particular way. And certainly in relationships, learning not to control another out of your desire for them to be fulfilling your emptiness, and therefore fill yourself up, self-responsibility, taking, you know, yourself out of victim mode, putting yourself into these higher frequencies, and really, you know, standing strong and independent of others, but enjoying the collaboration
and connection,
without a need. And being very organic about it, because here you and I are, and we've had a weaving of, you know, connectedness started way back when you looked at something of mine years ago, and here we are now meeting and recognizing the divine timing that you and I needed to get to this level where we could sit here pre-recording and actually say, oh my goodness me, do we not understand each other? Like, it's just ridiculous. The connectedness we now have, because our earth suits are way more purified. We've trained ourselves to a greater level. We're embodied in a much higher frequency, or a greater extent now. And so you and I can speak and just go boom, 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 like we've met each other, you know, like we've known each other all our lives. So, you know, there is a lot to be extremely excited about, happy about, thankful for, despite the fact that we are really doing full-on boot camp. And here we are. So
so perfectly said, and I'm just absorbing everything that you're saying and the imagery that I'm getting as well. But I feel so grateful to be actually able to sit down and talk with someone who has made the transition that you have from the medical world and the institutionalized system into this, you know, I see you as someone who has liberated yourself into, you know, into a whole different embodiment, lifestyle. I mean, what you have gone through on a personal human level to make that change.
Because I didn't sort of explain that what then happened is, after seeing the psychiatrist, my husband threw me out of the house. I ended up living in a hotel for many weeks on my own, unable to see the kids because I was considered, you know, unstable. And I wasn't. I just had lost programming of heightened schedules, and you know, I was happy for the kids to sort of make their own choices with things rather than, you know, so, but that was seen as sort of, you know, bad parenting. And so I was thrown out of the home. I went back to India and sat in the temple for 6 weeks and really grounded what I thought at the time was grounding my experience. In fact, I was probably shooting off even further into cosmic consciousness, because it really was 18 months before I grounded, fully, to be able to be more powerful in what I do. But my husband divorced me. I went through the courts. He was very, very angry and bitter. It had activated, as high as I went, it activated his fear and bitterness and all his programming. And he, in fact, now I think gets puppeteered very heavily by the dark to continue to attack me. And I saw, again, training. There I am in the court system, never wanting to be there, wanting to have just done a negotiation where we separated, but no, it had to go through the court because that's what people's go-to is. And there I was with a reptilian barrister who had slipped into my team because the barrister I was meant to have was sick in the morning. And so in comes the reptilian, and I'm face to face with a reptilian who's on my team, supposedly, that I'm paying a fortune for, who was shape-shifting on and off to the point that my lawyer, who had only just woken up through some of my explaining my story, sat there with me and said on the coffee break, he's one of those that you've told me about. He's a reptilian, isn't he? As he could see the scales on him flashing in and out, and his tongue and this extreme reaction to me of sort of almost hissing at me, and the downloads I was getting of him in underground bases with kids in underpants and singlets sitting in buckets of cold water. Now, this was totally out of my, I hadn't even got to the sort of satanic understanding of rituals and what goes on underground and with these trafficked children. And I was getting it in the Melbourne court setting, an absolute experience of it. So did I like it? God, no. But I absolutely, in that experience, understood the dynamics of the dark and how they control this system. And so when I tried to put in some requests of what I wanted, this reptilian in cahoots with the legal system that wants to screw people over, did a great job. And I was out dry reaching, not from the outcome. I was dry reaching from the energetic experience of being slammed by a reptilian, but I can recognize them now very quickly. So
can I just pause you there?
Yeah.
I'm writing notes because as you're saying things, I'm correlating experiences that I've had and getting a deeper understanding. So 2016, I went to court for a financial matter that I got well and truly screwed over, completely out of my control, and it should never have happened. So I fought back and tried to take him to court. And what you've just described, now I'm like, oh my goodness, because I lost that and I should never have lost that.
Exactly.
And I walked out and I dry reach vomited everywhere. And I was horrendously shaking for 24 hours because this energy was...
And I recognized I was vomiting not through the outcome. At that point, I was still in cosmic consciousness, in love and light, and it didn't matter, and the universe was going to look after me. And I was, kumbaya, my Lord, as I'm vomiting in the, recognizing that I was vomiting not from the outcome. I was vomiting from the absolute insult of this energy that just totally wants to obliterate you. And I wasn't, paranoid, because I could see that my ex-husband's barrister was actually not a reptilian, was actually beautiful. He worked for him, so of course he was not aligning with my desires, but I could see the difference in the energy. So
I need your consent on a few items to continue.
So that's okay. So, very revealing. And I've had multiple experiences over the years of, being shown what goes on, but it's part of my work. And, we're a bit like those, clowns that you see outside, used car sales, where you sort of bop back with a challenge and then you sort of stand back up and go, okay, next level of the game, and we've learnt so much. We're here as warriors. We're here to try and to free ourselves and anybody who can come along with us out of this matrix system, which is stepping into this higher frequency that is that it's available. So we're here on the planet, in the world, but not of it, not of this control, and not being heavily targeted and not being used and abused. And so this is what we've got to do. And it's through the detachment, it's through the softening of our earth suit, and bringing in these energies and recognizing where you're being manipulated, that if you are thinking anything other than peace, love and joy and well-being, it ain't you. Because you in truth is only, you in truth, you are only peace, love, joy and well-being. And so if you're not that, it's a contaminant, it's a thought, a program or a technology or a device. So then I get on to, so what happened with my work is I recognized there was no way I could work as a medical doctor anymore, because I could not align with the practices. And that's not to say that there aren't some great things there in the medical profession. And obviously when you're, in an emergency and you've had an accident, chopped off your finger, it's the place you need to be. But for psychiatric conditions, people need to be very careful, because you'll be diagnosed with depression or bipolar or, all of these things that are now being ramped up. We're seeing so many psychiatric diagnoses, so many more people on antidepressants. The market's flooded with the drugs, and they don't have an understanding of any of this that goes on. And so I've worked out through my own experiences and the work that I do with people, the dynamic of how this is set up, and using the energy that I am as a tuning fork to bring in another person's higher self. Only them. We only use their energy embodied in them, and get this activation of the codes to help the purification. But also my work will get into the subconscious and actually using energy to clear off the ego identification that is so heavily entrained with the subconscious, that's been so programmed from past life experiences and this lifetime. And the same with the emotional body. So clearing the mental and emotional programming, the energetic imprints from all the traumas that were unnecessary, but they've put us through all of that, whether it's real or virtual. And they continue to do it in the dream state for many people, attacking people, so that you're being reimplanted, or you're having setups in your 3D reality to reactivate these traumas and wounds. And so people need to understand it's not that, oh, you've got more shadow and you're not doing enough work. This is full on attack and targeting. And so it's not for people to feel guilty or that they haven't done enough work on themselves. In fact, the more you embody the light, the more that will be revealed to you, but you will always have the skills and abilities and the higher protection ultimately to assist you. So we're having these extraordinary experiences of cleaning off these programs and the technologies. And it's been revealed to me that we've got, artificial intelligence already in these earth suits. We've got nanotechnology, we've got goo, we've got gels and fibers, we've got, infections and heavy metals. And this was done on purpose. We've been compromised. And the next level we're going through at the moment is a further form of genocide and trying to wipe out many of us through, whatever this virus is, and then the ridiculousness of how it's being managed with us being, sterilized and masked and, locked up, and how readily people have just taken this information from the mainstream and become so compliant and just watching this unfold. And so what an extraordinary time we're in. So using my energy, I'm cleaning off people's programs, and extraordinary things are happening where I'm finding I'm doing exorcisms. And now this is something I was non-spiritual, non-religious. This is all totally new to me. And I'm sitting here in the chair on Skype or in person, removing these entities that have turned people either into gamblers, that they became gamblers overnight and lost all their money, lost their family, addictions, so people's addictions, teenagers' body dysmorphia and eating disorders, their depressions and anxieties. Now, this can either be entities, and I've had full-on experiences where I'll bring the energy in and the person will start growling at me or thrusting their hands saying, no, 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 as I'm clearing this entity off, because they know they're losing their feed, they're losing their vehicle that they've hitchhiked onto, and to create further issue for a person. I've had people waking up with sexual energy, lusting after children, knowing very well that that's not them, that all of a sudden you don't get that. And I think that we also have to be very careful for a lot of what we're seeing in this transgender movement. I have no issue with people being whoever they need to be. But if this is coming because of dark interference in energy fields, in genetics, in you know, body dysmorphia, is you know, it's all along the same lines. So we've got to look very clearly at what's going on there as well. And I'm certainly seeing teenagers who say, I'm all of a sudden attracted to, you know, the same sex in my class, and having terrible anxiety, and coming to see me, and I'm clearing all of that off, and they're just going back to, you know, who they were originally before this interference. So, you know, it's incredible. And you and I have even discussed how a lot of the time the go-to help for people is actually set up to capture them and actually recognize who's waking up. And so they're using systems in place through the doctors, through the psychiatric world, to actually identify people who have the potential to become, you know, light beings, light warriors, and you know, are a threat. And so they'll quickly be medicalized and shut down. So a lot of my work is really clearing off the depressions, the anxieties, the fears, the doubts, the unworthiness, the suicidal, you know, ideations, and these things are ramping up for people. And we're really seeing, and as the light is coming in, the dark is throwing everything at us at the moment. So yes, so that's this, you know, that's the sort of work I do, as well as helping people balance their physiology, biochemistry, and any other disease process that's going on, helping to clear that, helping to activate, you know, I activate their DNA, and you know, help them open up into higher frequency timelines, collapsing down all their other timelines that are bleeding into this now moment with past life so-called experiences that have been horrific, and they're continuing to activate people. So you're wondering why you're reliving this feeling of, you know, anxiety or post-traumatic stress disorder that's running everybody. We've got these timelines bleeding in and poking, and so we clear those off, shut them down, and really gather soul fragments that had fractured off in these experiences, bringing them back so your soul is becoming more whole and complete. And I want people to understand this is not about soul lessons or your soul needing development. Your soul is source light. It is pure peace, love, joy, and well-being, unconditional, without the shadow aspects. There's no duality of that source connection that you are. This is a journey of cleaning an earth suit of its programs. It's not your energy that's needing to learn lessons or to have a growth. It's about cleaning up. So there's a lot of misinformation, as far as I'm concerned, that's come in by dark infiltration into the movement, where people have become compromised and may speak 90% truth and then come up with this sort of twisted bit that takes the awakened movement out to the side to shuffle deck chairs on the sinking Titanic, rather than actually getting on with the job. So we must be careful with our understandings, where we're getting caught in a Stockholm syndrome of thanking the dark for the lessons that we needed or that we chose supposedly, or that you were so bad in the past life you deserve to have a rotten time this time, it's your karma. This is all garbage as far as I'm concerned, and needs to be looked at, because, you know, we've been so experimented on, so controlled, and then fed that this was all good for us and we chose it. And that's not my understanding at all. And, you know, waking up to this and not being all love and light and loving these evil beings that don't need to be in this reality controlling us, they're not source connected as far as I'm concerned. These are, you know, really evil in here, feeding off us and using us. So yeah, that sort of describes where I've been and where I am at the moment. And you know, as you know from people that I've worked with, that you've actually also worked with, what I'm doing has, you know, an impact on people. And this is very real, what can take place when you align with the light and clean up your earth suit.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that, and I couldn't agree more with you, because it really is about the human embodiment and being able to hold that much light. And there is that fragment of coming back. And when you were talking about the bleed-in of the past life timelines, I had a flashback, and I remember standing at my kitchen. A lot happens at my kitchen sink near the shower. It's always around water for me, and I just, because I was battling with this, I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was like there was this, a bit like what was happening this morning. We were talking off camera, and I was like, why am I feeling this experience? I remember the download came to me. It said, you're in a process of a bleed-in timeline. You need to work on clearing and collapsing that. And so when I sat and, you know, how do I do that? You know, investigate. And then it just went boom. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So many people would be going through this and have no.
And it's palpably shifting. I mean, I'll do the work and I'll literally clunk, like it's like, whoa, I've actually just, you know, we've literally just gone into a you know, cleaner timeline, higher frequency, collapsing down all these other things. And this is what people don't understand, that they're running so many programs and so much feeling. And as I said, this we're in a constant state of post-traumatic stress disorder with no reference point, because we've been mind wiped. So, you know, this ain't a school, and we're not learning lessons when you've been mind wiped and further triggered by things that you've got no access point to until you really awaken and can do what you and I are doing for people. Because, you know, mind wiping and continuously being tortured ain't a school. You know, that's you know, an enslavement camp. So we need to, as I keep saying, reverse engineer what they've done, understanding we're more magical, we're more powerful, and we are connected to source, and these entities aren't. And so these darker beings have got, you know, they're using us. They need us to be dumbed down, to feed off, to puppeteer, to control, because they can't exist in this lower dimension, this human, this physicality, without us. And when we activate and awaken to our gifts and abilities and the magic and the synchronicities and the power that we have, you know, we've got it all. We are amazing. You know, the dark can do certain things in collaboration with the shadow government and the military using technologies, but it's artificial. We're source.
Correct. We're we've got the superpower, you know, when it's activated. I mean, I'm sure that you have seen some of the most magical, miraculous things through this journey. It's like, it blows your mind every day of like, wow, that's, you know, that's how powerful we are connected into source as human beings. So,
and it's getting easier to connect people. The new ones that come along, it's getting a lot easier. It's a lot faster. The work is a lot more powerful. There's a deeper recognition and a resonance, and you know, what would have taken a little bit longer is cleaning up abruptly. People's lives are changing for the better in extraordinary ways. And, you know, opening up to more and more. And as we were talking about this sort of split that's really happening, and there's almost like a retrocausality happening for both timelines. One's got already done in an artificial intelligence, and another that's opening up to this incredible organic power that we have to live these incredible lives. So yeah, amazing time for us to be here. And
sure is. I was having you've just a couple of things have sparked in my mind as you've been talking, and when I had my abrupt sort of Kundalini awakening, I was plugged into cosmic consciousness. I think I held it for, it was about 6 months, and it was in that very ungrounded state, but it was euphoric.
It's pretty cool.
Oh my goodness.
You're like, you know, as you're grounding in, and you realize you've got to ground it in because it doesn't have a power, and you're really just at the mercy of, you know, you're love and lighting way too much as you're being absolutely shafted in the court system, you know. So we actually do need a little bit more oomph to come through. But yes, it's, you know, what an experience to be floating up there in that you know, in that level of frequency.
It was just, you know, I've tried many times to share with people who haven't gone there yet, and it's
the thing that to describe it for me is the aliveness that it's all sparkly.
I know.
And so the aliveness, and when you realize how they're flattened, it's so dull, our senses have been so reduced and compromised that our experience of consciousness is, you know, is this, if we're lucky. And then you explode into this I am presence and open up to, you know, consciousness in its true form, expanded awareness. And it's the vibrancy that just appears.
Yeah, it's stunning. I don't know about you, but I think it was just before my big activation, or around the same time, I started dreaming. I call them New Earth dreams. You know, you can call it whatever, but it's like when I'm in that dreaming space, I know that it's a future timeline. And everything has that iridescent magical glow. And I know that they've been placed there for me to continue pushing through the hard times. And I've always said that I'm so grateful for those dream states and those experiences, because they've held me through the fuck-uppery of the challenges and the darkness.
Absolutely. And iridescence, the word that you've just said, and you've actually reminded me of the other day. I was working with somebody who had only had their second session, cleaned off a lot of their trauma. That turns out it had actually been galactic interference with some negative abductions and things, but she had been completely shut down from this experience. And anyway, I cleaned her up in the first session, and the second session, well, the first one she came in person, and the second one I did a Skype session, and the energy was like, she was concerned it may not be so effective, but it was like unbelievable, the power that was coming through a month after. And we're sitting there, and she goes, oh my gosh, you've shapeshifted into an Aboriginal, you're a shaman. And oh my gosh, we're surrounded by a whole tribe doing this ancient ceremony. Oh my God, no, you're a galactic being. Oh my God, we're on a craft. It's iridescent, you're iridescent, all the beings. It's our galactic family, they're iridescent, they're shining around us, they're pouring. Oh my God, this is how she's speaking. And I can feel it, and I have a nose seeing, and I sort of can tap into what she's discussing. This is a newbie.
Yeah, I know.
She then writes to me afterward and said, whatever went on has done something extraordinary. She's transformed so much, has dropped off from this iridescent light show that we were in such a multi-dimensional, depending on what sort of frequency we were tapping into. There was the solid reality, there was the Aboriginal reality, there was the the galactic spaceship, iridescent light beings. And you know, you can't make this up. You know, she's not even aware of any of this. She's so new. She hasn't been sort of studying, researching or whatever. This was purity in its form coming in. So, you know, it's a time of absolute incredible openness and understanding, talking about this grounding, realizing that ascension is ascending in frequency, but it's embodiment in the earth suit.
Correct.
And I say to people, the most important thing that we can be doing is getting into the body, cleaning and purifying, and actually living a life of peace, love, and joy, and having a fun time, life embracing. It's not about spaceship travel and meeting beings. That's fun if that happens and it's benevolent and it's good for you, whatever. But it's not. That's not it. It is in the suit. Living a life of peace, love, and joy, and radiating out those waves of frequency to activate others around you in your presence, through your look, through your voice, through the work that you may be doing.
I often always say it's the, when people talk about soul, I do a lot of work helping with people in activating their soul mission. And I always say it's the embodiment. What you do in a 3D capacity is great, but it's the energy that you hold that is the most important thing.
Absolutely. And you can, you know where you're at when you look at your level of peace day to day, and we make peace the priority. So, you know, it's not about third eye activations. That's fun, but it is actually about but it's actually about how much peace and then ultimately joy are you having each day, and making that a priority. And making your frequency embodiment the most important thing about your existence here, and the rest will look after itself. You will be shown, the breadcrumbs will be, you know, delivered for you to sort of navigate on your path. And it becomes extremely, you know, magical and lots of fun. And as you're detaching without your anxiety of what's going to happen and when's it going to happen, and let go of needing to know when and how it's all going to unfold, and become very present and enjoy what's unfolding in that moment, recognizing that your peace, love, and joy is independent of your external reality. And then realizing the more present you become, the more shiny and shimmery it is around you, and you get to create and manifest an abundance of good things for yourself and others. But you're not clinging to when and how. You're just enjoying as it unfolds, trusting in this higher experience that, you know, it's all, and here we are. I mean, you and I sitting here today having this conversation, you know, it's already been set up. This is the organic weaving of this awakening, which is fantastic. And despite what they're throwing at us, you and I being locked up, muzzled and so forth in Melbourne, as horrific as that was, here you and I are sitting having a conversation at this level. So it's amazing how powerful we are.
Truly well said. I can't get this image out of my head, so I have to share it. Two things. When I started downloading the technique that I use, which is always changing and evolving, but how I do my energy work, I truly believe, because that was not in my most grounded moment, so I'll admit that, but I truly believe when I was shown it and I started working with it, I was like, all I have to do is one per person and that's it. Like, they're activated, they're done, right? I truly believed that. And then I was getting frustrated as to, why is it not happening? This is going back many years ago, right? But I feel like we're at the point now that I was tapping into of what is possible. Not to say it's going to be very individual, but it is certain. I'm seeing it at the moment, and it's certainly possible.
I agree with you. I think, look, one session, you can be completely activated and have these codes of self-healing and self-purification activated, and the dissolving, if you like, of that was done to enslave you. However, I would also say to people, we have to practice spiritual hygiene. Because
I use that all the time.
In a swamp, we're living in a swamp. You know, this is, you know, so when you've been out to a shopping centre, yeah, you know,
I don't go to them.
Well, exactly. But, you know, we need to be mindful, and this is where we need to be keeping a lot of attention, at least half your attention on your inner world as your outside world, and keep referencing, what am I feeling, what's going on, how much am I embodying, am I feeling soft, am I feeling light, or what's been going on. This level of self-inquiry is going to always be important as we're navigating, because although you can be activated and cleaned of a lot of your, you know, programming, you still are living in this lower dimension in a physical earth suit that will need this pure, you know, this hygiene. So like we take a shower every day or whatever, you need to practice some form of connecting, clearing, and but it becomes very natural. It doesn't mean you have to sit in a chair for 2 hours oming and meditating. It becomes a living, breathing experience as you remind yourself to breathe in source light. And you can be doing that driving the car or having a cup of tea or whatever, and just remind yourself that every breath is bringing in high frequencies, cleansing, clearing, activating you. And your attention on that will accelerate, accentuate, and, you know, propel you into that higher state very quickly. So yeah, we have to remind ourselves, we have to discipline ourselves to train ourselves to come back into center as often as we can.
Yeah, and I feel right now, like as we're recording this and at the time that we're at, that is the most important thing. And it's almost navigating moment to moment. I think we mentioned earlier. And I'm so glad you said energy hygiene. I'm always banging on about that. I'm like, you know what? Energy hygiene is even more important than physical hygiene, in my opinion. Energy clearing, then shower.
You know, like, I mean, you can, it's so funny because you can look at some of the 3D, you know, our 3D experiences and transcribe them into understandings on a multidimensional level, like sexually transmitted diseases. I say we need to watch out for the sexually transmitted demons. So same STD, same, but, you know, the demon.
Would you elaborate on that? Because I've talked about this to clients, you know, I've talked about it for years. I've touched on it in a few videos, and there's people who totally get it, and there's people that are horrifically mortified that I would even say that.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, you know, this awakening journey is extremely challenging, as you know, challenging to our understanding of what we're in. It's horrific for people to really grasp that we are living in a dimension that is controlled by baby breeding, baby raping, baby eating monsters that blackmail the minions, you know, the politicians, the judges, etc., through incorporating them in their sick rituals and having evidence of it so that they can become the puppets to whatever agenda that they want. So through the grooming process, the nicely spoken, charismatic, highly intelligent human gets groomed to be the politician and taken off, wined and dined and taken off to a nice ritual. So, you know, this is to get to that understanding, you know, you've really got to have worked through quite a lot to start accepting that's what we're in, because people don't want to face it and it's too much for them. But once we understand, we're way better off to know the mechanics of this so that we can undo it.
Exactly.
Because if we keep our head in the sand and say it's all love and light, then we're not going to understand how to really sort through this and undo what they've done to us.
Yeah.
So sexuality is one of the biggest areas that they're interfering with, and we know that through the pedophilia, that they are using the energy of children to fuel themselves. The dark love the sexual energy. It's you know, a great fuel for them. It's louche for them.
Yeah.
And so they need to set these sorts of things up. So they will use another person who is not as highly evolved in terms of frequency embodiment as you. They'll attach to them. These entities will be quite hidden because, as I've done with my work, when I bring in my frequency, then the entity will really be revealed and start growling and frothing at the mouth and putting, you know, head back, etc. That so you won't be aware of this entity that's lurking around. And some of the sexual practices are encouraging the transmission of some of these entities. So, you know, anal sex, for instance, can have a very quick, you know, entry of demons into, you know, the base of spine, lower chakras.
You see it.
And, you know, I'm not a prude. I don't care what people do. I just want people to be healthy and you know, stay, you know, aligned. But we need to be aware that, you know, people that have dysfunction and have not done a lot of work on themselves will have can have some entities, particularly people who have been drug abusers or heavily medicated on drugs, people who have been parts of, you know, certain industries are going to more likely have picked up things. Yeah. And it's not people's fault. You know, this is where we really need to understand that, you know, I'm not blaming anybody for anything that they've got going on, because we have just been slammed by the dark. So if you've got an entity on you, it's not your fault. You know, we don't have free will about this stuff until we wake up and take the responsibility. You know, you're victims of this lower dimension.
Yeah.
But these entities will be transmitted through sexual activity. And it's a way of the dark getting further infiltration. So it's real, unfortunately.
It is real. Yeah. And it's so nice to have a chat with you and share about this stuff, because I mean, I see it in session after session, and it's like, and you'd be the same, and it's like, oh my God, like every day I learn, and I'm like either amazed or mortified, or, you know, combination of all.
Look, you know, it's real. It's so real, this entity embodiment and invasion of our physical earth suits, which is why we must keep our vibe so high, because they cannot get in when our frequency is up. We keep a personal reality bubble of high vibe. They can't feed off us. They certainly can't get in. But, you know, how real they are is when I'm doing this and seeing people growling and frothing at the mouth. And, you know, one girl's eyes, I said, open your eyes so I can really look in and see what's going on. And she couldn't look at me, one eye's up here and one eye's down here. And she said, it's controlling my eyes. Now, that's physically impossible for a human to do that to themselves, to have that, you know, a bit, you know, your eyes off in different directions like that. And, you know, it's in. This stuff it's real, and you bring in these frequencies, you bring in their higher light, this thing can't live there anymore, and off it goes. And the person then feels completely different, and often will state, I'm in my body for the first time in a long time. I'm looking through my eyes. I'm moving my hands. They've had this, you know, they've been pushed to the side.
Can I ask you a question? This is the eyes. So I'm going to share a couple of things, and then I want to ask your thoughts on it. I've often seen amongst people, you know, loved ones and things, that they're being controlled and manipulated through the eyes of another person, through entity and attachment, and it comes through the eyes. And it's something that I've talked about with a few clients who've observed in other people, and it's this. And I know when I look at photos of certain people, I can't look at the eyes, because I can feel this really heavy, dark energy. Now, I had this, it was this morning. I went to get a coffee, and I felt the person's energy before I made the payment exchange. And it was like I could feel their energy, and it was just, ooh. And I heard specifically, don't look in their eyes. That was my guidance. Don't look into their eyes. And I made the payment. I didn't make eye contact. And there was a part of me was like, and I did. And I made the eye contact, and immediately I felt this energy.
Yeah, wow.
So I had to go home and clear.
Yeah, wow.
And you brought it up. What more can you share about, is there anything more that you can share about what you've noticed? Or
yeah, look, I mean, the eyes will tell us a lot, the window to the soul, as they've always said. And it's an easy way for people to transmit energy. Now, it's a very easy way for me to transmit good energy.
Activations, correct, yeah.
And it's a great way for people to spread their love and light when they're out in an environment or a situation. But if there is this, entity attachment, then that they're going to use that in the reverse to actually start, activating programs and technologies within someone. So we do have to be careful. But look, somebody who's holding a high vibe like yourself does not have to worry about it too much, because you've got too much of it. The battle will be on. It was a bit like me seeing the reptilian barrister. He knew, and he'd hiss at me, and then he'd sort of calm down, and he'd sort of hiss at me. And it's a battle, but because they can feel you, they know you can see them. Yeah. And but if you're clean, if you've got a high vibe, if you're practicing bringing in this light, then they're not going to do anything to you. But it's good, just information. But people who are unaware certainly will get this. And this will go on all over the place. Shopping centres, nightclubs are dreadful for this. Some of the brothels and places like this are going to have a higher density of this going on. Certainly in nature, and walking on the beach is going to be a lot cleaner. And look, I think another interesting thing I notice when I try to talk on topics of truth, particularly in the current reality of this COVID craziness, I notice through people's eyes the immediate switch on when I've said too much, a word that has triggered a switch, and you see behind the eyes a literal clunk, 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 clunk. They've gone completely into program. And they will not hear you, and out comes just this blah, 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 automated response.
Yeah.
And so you can see a lot through the eyes. I can see the light come through, and then you can see it absolutely shut down. And then, of course, you can become very aware of a sinister person behind their eyes in some instances. Yeah, so...
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's all energy, as we know. These things will come through even antiques. I was dealing with somebody the other day who bought a Chinese antique painting and woke up in the middle of the night and went, that has to go. And realised that it had a curse. And actually took it out, rang me, talked to me about it. We talked about what to do, and took it out and burnt it. And something's completely lifted out of the house. Now,
Well, I mean, it's energy, and it comes in all forms. And I mean, I shared with you offline, when I went through an experience earlier in the year, I was aware that I had to get rid of every personal item that was in connection to somebody else.
Yes.
As my human never would have done that.
Yeah.
But I knew that the energy was being transmitted through that. And I had a big bonfire. So.
Yeah. And isn't this also an interesting segue into also be careful what it is of yours that somebody else might take, whether it's hair samples or whatever. Then and of course, we've got these tests that they're putting swabs to the back of your head. we're just got to keep watching what goes on here and bringing in pieces of the puzzle and collaborating our information and understanding.
Yeah.
You know, I know people that have been caught up in relationships with top level people who have taken hair samples. You know, they'll be out for dinner and all of a sudden, oh, what have you done? Oh, sorry, I just caught some of your, you know, they've literally taken hair samples.
Yeah.
And, you know, then people have gone on to have horrendous experiences. So it's we're in the land of Harry Potter meets, you know, the Hunger Games twisted with the Matrix, you know, the Truman Show and Harry Met Sally. I mean, what are we in?
Yeah.
It is, you know, cosmic circus.
Oh, I like that, cosmic circus.
Well, it is, you know, look over here, we've got the bearded lady, we've got the amphibian, we've got the half woman, half horse, you know, it's anything goes. And another point that I'd like to actually bring up too is also be careful how much we're distracted by a lot of what is being revealed, particularly for the awakened community. They want us at the edge of this expansion of consciousness. We are the creators and they are using us as co-creators, which is, well, you know, why they like us to be informed about certain things is because as we get into the drama, the trigger, the reaction, we are co-creating. I mean, the more they stand up and tell us what's going to unfold and we get in angst about it, it doesn't mean that we don't stand up as warriors and fight against this and push back on it. But watch your energy as you're doing a lot of this, because if they're using you as a co-creator of exactly what you don't want.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I think, isn't it interesting, we had the CEO of Qantas standing up talking about you'll have to have a vaccine to travel on our flights. Yet it hadn't even been approved of yet. I'm thinking, I think you've slipped from page 80 to page 90 of your COVID-19 reset book and forgotten that you haven't actually gently moved us through pages 85, you know, 86, 87. You haven't even got a vaccine and you're already telling us it's going to be mandatory to get on your plane. So they want drama. They want us to already being trained in what's coming, so that we are co-creating along the way with them. You know,
I think it's so important for that message. I mean, everything that we've discussed, but what you've just said right there, because that is what I've been feeling and tapping into this morning, yesterday morning. It hits me in the morning and I'm in my mind, it's like, oh, politics and, you know, I call it the C word and, you know, like all that. And I can feel it buzzing in my field. And I'm like, and huge anxiety about it. And I'm like, hang on a second. And I know that a lot of people that I connect with who are amazing beings of light are picking up the same thing. So it's like we're kind of sharing notes going, hang on a second, no, we've got to realign here. It almost does feel like a collective co-creating hijacking.
Absolutely. They're happy to have us on the leading edge of this creation, which is why they'll do truth drops where it becomes so obvious for us as awakened people that, you know, they're giving us information. I mean, Biden's laptops get found, you know, with all the juice on it by, you know, like seriously, it's a drop for people to be, you know, taken down another direction. There's going to be, you know, more and more, there's conspiracies galore for whatever flavor you like to take you down further and further different rabbit holes. I mean, look at the inquiry into the Dan Andrews security group of the hotel, you know, they just want us involved in all sorts of garbage to continuously distract and use our energies to create the reality that they want. So we do have to be aware, we do have to discuss it, but you can tell by the energy you're holding during the conversation or during your experience of receiving some information, because if you're holding that softened earth suit, fully embodied of light, your vibration won't alter, even though you'll talk about horrific 3D things. And that means that you can have this discussion and understand and navigate and work out what to do. but you're not being part of the problem.
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully said. Thank you so much, Maree. I mean, there is just gem after gem after gem in this conversation, and I really hope that people can really take it and embody everything that you've shared with us so, you know, openly and graciously. Just so beautiful. I want to wrap up just with one other thing that's sitting right here, and it hasn't even fully formulated. I think it's going to be one of those things that comes in later and go, oh, okay. But when you were talking about when you went through your separation, you were living out of a hotel. I've heard you say that before, and I know which hotel it was because I've heard you say it on a video. I'm not going to repeat it here. But I've written it down because I'll have to go back to my dream notes. But I had a dream, I think it was around end of 2017. I'll go back and find the specific details. But I was going to a graduation because there was this grand finale of something that had been completed. And I was going to the name of that place, hotel, right? There was a whole scenario around it. After things had taken place, there was abilities of people being able to teleport and biolocate. It was one of those higher times.
Wow, beautiful.
And a few days later, I took a little drive down the coast and I saw that name and that place that you were staying in, and it hit me, and I saw it and I started to well up and cry. I said, this means something. This means something.
Wow. Wow. You have just given me a deeper activation understanding of that, because it had dawned on me, but not like it's hitting me right now in this moment. I think we can say the name of the hotel.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I just didn't know if you wanted to.
No, and I've discussed it before, but it was the Quest Hotel.
The Quest.
And yeah. And you know, I took to that hotel like a sadhu going into the cave. And I absolutely embraced that experience. I was separated from my family and I had no fear. I was in cosmic consciousness and I went, wow, I am in this hotel for a very good reason. And I spent my time walking across to the beach and being one with the waves, one with the birds, and, you know, having a coffee on the beach and just going, wow, I really was in bliss. And I lived there for a month without, you know, I actually continued to do a little bit of work, but I, you know, really was very isolated, but it was an extraordinary time for me in the Quest. So, wow. And, you know, the timing was right for me to hear that from you now. And this is what I keep talking about, this retro causality. We are giving each other this feedback to further our journey, where we're recognizing, and you can listen to a song that you may have grown up with and listen to it now, and it will have a very different meaning, significance. You may even notice a Mandela effect of the words being changed to suit where you're at now.
Actually, can I just share this, because this blew my mind. I was driving the other day, and quite often what I do is when I'm feeling that wonky energy, I'll put on music that, and straight away I can go into that space. So music's one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
And I was playing just a random shuffle, and this song came up, and I skipped it. And a few songs later, it came back up again. So technically, this shouldn't happen. It happens 3 times, and I tried to skip it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah.
I play it. The words were talking to me so directly and telling me what is about to unfold.
Yes.
From a download that I had moments before. So I look at it and I look at the freaking song and I'm like, I have that album, yet I've never heard this song before.
Yeah.
And I wigged it out because I said, this is an album I've listened to for years.
Yeah.
Yet this song.
And this is the Mandela effect, because this is not solid, this reality. So we're in this computerized simulation projection. it's easy to slip another song on an album that you've listened to time and time again and never, you know, it was not there in the same way that, you know, we know about other Mandela things that people are commenting on. So this is a personalized Mandela effect. And so here you are. But the beauty of it is what's come through in this now moment is something to further activate you and get you. Yeah. So it's incredible.
Can I just say that the lyrics of the song, or the title is Thank You in Advance.
Yeah.
And it talks about the future self. I just realized now I'm having a bit of a giggle at myself. It's talking about someone going back to the part from the future to the past and recalling. So it's literally what you were explaining in the beginning of this. What a way to wrap up. Like, I'm just like drop right
and I'd like to add a song that I got downloaded the other day to listen to, because I was listening to the music and I couldn't remember the lyrics, and I'm going, what's that song? And I searched it up and found it, and it's a Damian Marley, Bob Marley's son's song, Patience.
Yeah.
And the lyrics in that song were pretty amazing, because he's an awakened being describing a lot of what's going on. And patience, soften, align, patience. We've all been, when am I going to get there? What's going to happen? I'm not there yet. Are we going to be rescued? When's it? You know, all of this projection into the future. We must get into the present moment and enjoy now, trusting and being patient, but not because you're not attaching to when and how this is going to happen. And then that will actually accelerate in the right direction.
Thank you so much. Just immense amount of gratitude for your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And likewise.
I'm going to put all the details in the description box so people can find you, follow you, connect with you, all that down there.
Sure. And if anyone wants to have a session, you know, I can highly recommend, from what I'm seeing in the way people are transitioning and accelerating through the work that I do, that, you know, I love it. It's my passion, and I'm here to help anybody with any of their issues, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to, you know, we're all in this spiritual war, and we're here to help activate each other. And so bring it on.
100%. Highly recommend. As I said in the beginning, I've had the privilege of talking with a few of your clients, and just wow, mind blown. So all the details will be there if you want to, if you feel guided, called to connect with Maree in that way. Do recommend going and doing that. Thank you once again. Thank you for everyone who's watched. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I have. It's been fun. And maybe we can do this again sometime when the time aligns.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And until next time, everyone, soft, stay in alignment.
Bye then. Bye. Thanks again.